So, one of the things that I don't know if I've actually felt this, but people have said to me when I share the user's manual with them, oh, so you're saying it's my fault.
Yes, I've heard that.
Now, I'm going to read the next bit of the user's manual and I want to talk about it. But if, as we're talking about it, I'd love to explore that, the
Okay.
difference
Yeah.
between it being yours, and it being your fault. But so the user's manual goes on to say, and guess who's in charge of your thinking? Guess who gets to decide where your attention goes? Guess who gets to write, produce, direct, and star at the moment you're in the middle of? You. Just you. Not your past, stored thought. Not the future. Did you ever notice that it never ever shows up? Not your parents, they all think their own thoughts. Or your friends, ditto. Or school, or media, or situations, or circumstances, or anything else. Just you. Now, for me, that was equal parts liberating and daunting. Because I sort of, on the one hand, could kind of go, okay, so that's me. I get that. Like I got, oh yeah, I can see that nobody did that to me. But then on the other level, as as somebody who self-described as a type A overachiever, it really made me feel like I had a lot of work to do.
Mm.
If I was going to write and direct and produce and star and like, Jesus, woman, do you not realize I'm busy?
I ruined your life.
Well, it wasn't great to begin with. I got to be honest. But so while on the one hand I absolutely get the freedom that comes with that, why is that not a huge burden as well?
Well, if we if we think about using our mind as a tool to create,
Mm.
well, say it's like say you have a hammer, right? Like little kids have they have those little toys where you pound a peg into.
Yeah,
God, love them. Bam, bam, bam,
yeah,
bam. And they don't kind of care how they're doing it. They're having fun. Well, we get a little older, we get a bigger hammer and some nails and some tools. And when we build something and it turns out right, we feel pretty good about it, huh? Every once in a while, we hit our thumb. Oops. Right. Same with this. We create, we build experiences, we create. And there's a feeling to when we're using it the way it's meant to be used. We're just creating wonderful experiences. We're enjoying ourselves. And and then when we misuse that tool, not so much. We get scared, we get worried, and or we start criticizing ourselves or whatever. Isn't that handy?
mm,
Don't you think that's handy? When you when you misuse it, it doesn't feel so hot. When you use it the way it's meant to be used, it feels great. Any tool is like that. Now, the beauty of that is when we're little and we bang around and we don't get the peg in the hole or whatever, we don't care.
mm,
We're just having a good time with the hammer.
mm.
What happens to us humans when we're using this tool? We start judging ourselves when we misuse it instead of saying, oops, that makes sense?
Yeah, it actually reminds me of when I was a kid, I used to write these little musicals, aged 8. And I remember there was one where my friend Donald Benjamin was a lion, and I can't remember, but I was playing some animal that he was supposed to eat. And when it came to the point where he was going to eat me, and I looked at him and went, Mares eat oats and and little lambs eat ivy. A kit'll eat ivy too, wouldn't you? And he said, and it was like that. Like I haven't thought of that in years, but I had nothing on it.
That's it.
Like it might not have been Les Mis, but it was just fun.
That's it. That's it. With any tool.
Yeah.
It's like your story about the Rolling Stones
Mm.
banging away and then satisfaction. See, I'm not as animated as you
It's
were.
pretty good.
It's not too bad. Okay,
I
good,
like that.
good.
Yeah.
So it's like that. You're just having fun and you hit a sour note and so what?
Mm.
You just see, wow, this works pretty well. When I'm using this thing the way the universe meant me to use it, there's a sensation about that that's just like being a little kid having a good time. When I misuse it, it hurts. Sometimes just a little, sometimes a little more. Sometimes it can make me miserable for hours, if not days, if not months, if not. But that's because we didn't know. Oops, just misused the tool.
Mm.
It was an oops.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything else. It was just an oops.
Let me pick up on another bit of that little excerpt from the user's manual. You talk about the the that it's not the past stored thought and it's not the future. Have you ever noticed that it never ever shows up? And that it's not your parents, and it's not. Now, that must wreak havoc on people's victim stories.
Oh, it just ruins it.
Yeah.
It just totally takes away their favorite thing.
And yet I know, because I know you and we've talked about it many times, you're not saying that bad things might not have happened to you.
Oh, no, not at all. Of course they did. Of course they did. And but memory is another awesome gift. It's just but it's like having an expandable library. And and you have memories that you can leave on the shelf. You can have memories that you can relive. Some of them are a lot of fun, some of them not so much. And there are some memories that they're not so much fun to relive, but you can retell them maybe in service to others. And there are memories that um, set into motion something else, but you can catch that. Memory is awesome, but it isn't running your show.
Mm.
It's yours to use for good or evil.
Yeah.
It's yours to use. A memory doesn't get to decide how you use it. You do. That's liberation.
So I used to have a radio show, and on the radio show I had a guest named Byron Katie, and and Katie teaches something where you question where your experience comes from. And she told me before the show, um, I said, would you be willing to take calls? And she said, oh, I'd love to take calls. And particularly, I'd love to speak to anyone who's really struggling with a past trauma. And boy, did the universe deliver. So I put out an email, and we had a woman uh, call in who had been terribly abused. She had been from about the age of 6 to 9, I don't remember the exact age, been kept locked up and only let out for people to have sex with her. And it un, unsurprisingly, she had really never recovered. And I wish to this day I still had the recording of that show. But Katie just talked to her about thought, and she saw something, and she was free of it. She was laughing. She was liberated. And it was beautiful to see. But the extraordinary thing was, every call that we had after that first call was from a therapist or a well-meaning person saying, how dare you? How dare you make it okay what happened? And I found that extraordinary. That was my first experience of somebody almost arguing that it would be better to stay stuck in a memory than to be free. And I'm wondering if you've got any stories about people being liberated from that kind of what they thought was the past, but turned out to be stored thinking.
Tell you my own.
Sure.
Um, my first child died. He only got a week. He had a hole in his heart that couldn't be mended, and he was just with us a week. And for any of you who have ever lost a child, you already know nothing hurts more. Nothing. And at the time, I was very young and I didn't know anything about how my mind worked. And I was just, oh, I can tell you more about what I didn't know it wouldn't last forever. I didn't know that I would ever be able to sleep again without having horrific nightmares. I didn't know that I didn't have something to do with his death. I didn't know so much. So I was just devastated. Um, but I remember a couple of months after he died, one morning or late morning, it was about 11 or noon, I hadn't thought about him. I realized I hadn't thought about him since I got up. And what I did with that, as I said, I'd be a really bad mom. I haven't even thought about my baby today. So time passes, and I had a second son who I watched like a hawk. In fact, he's 63. I'm still watching him like a hawk. It's like, because I know a baby can die. You could not tell me I was watching too closely. Well, I have let up a little bit, um, but that memory, I think of it as a one-page little blue, beautiful little book. It's only got one page in it, and it's in my library. And I don't relive his death. In fact, I feel him when people ask me how many kids I have, I say 3, but in my head I say 4. So I just carry him with me. But every once in a while, I will have a client or friend or whatever who has lost a child. And if it calls for it, I will bring that story out and I will retell it in service to them. But I don't relive it. I still have the same option to relive it or retell it or leave it on the shelf. But I know now that that memory is mine to use as I wish. The memory itself doesn't decide that for me. That is an unbelievably healthy thing to know. It's, I met several actually, returning vets from Iraq who had had some just horrendous experiences. And one in particular who had gone months without sleeping because he was just afraid to go to sleep. He had such horrific dreams. And without going into the whole thing, uh, imagine what it would be like for someone like that to learn that a memory can't hurt him without his permission. Imagine. Imagine that. And it took him a bit, but not long, because he realized he had something to say about his dreams. He had something to say about that. That if he can know that a memory can't hurt him, that takes care of the dreams. I didn't know that was going to happen, but it did. And he could hardly wait to get back to his group at the vet's hospital and tell them something. Tell them something about bad dreams and about daymares, that they had no power without their permission.